Hello, good afternoon, SADS Facebook Live community. It's great to be with you again. You know what this means? It's Friday, and here we are for the weekend. And whether it's the afternoon, evening, morning, or whatever time zone you're in, I'm so glad you chose to join us at the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndromes Foundation, the SADS Foundation. My name is Mike Ackerman, and I'm a genetic cardiologist here at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and have had the privilege of serving on the board of the SADS Foundation for many years now. So on behalf of Alice Laura, our CEO, we're so glad that you chose to join us today for a really special SADS Facebook Live session. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. I think this is our 17th episode that we started when the COVID-19 pandemic was upon us and continues to be here. In case you forgot, it's still here. And I am excited to take on your questions. Just to give you some updates, last week there were 6.7 million cases throughout the world. Now there's 7.6 million. We've had over 30,000 new deaths in the last 7 days throughout the world. In the United States, we now have crossed the 2 million mark for COVID-19 cases and 114,000 deaths, of which there have been 5,500 new deaths in the United States this last week alone. We have continued to add 20,000 or more new cases every day in the United States for the past 70 days now, 23,000 new cases yesterday alone. So SARS-CoV-2 is not taking a break given the circumstances around us, and some of us are predicting that we're going to see a spike given the situation of the past week. In Olmsted County, we now have had 765 cases. This is my county where we have Rochester and Mayo Clinic. We've had 76 new cases since last week, and we're now at 12 deaths. And so there's still questions upon us. In the SADS community, good news, the number of COVID-19 cases among families affected with genetic heart rhythm diseases like long QT, Brugada, CPVT, or genetic heart muscle diseases like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, ARVC, is still very, very small number. Of over 2,000 patients that I take care of, I'm aware of only 2, a father and a son, who came down with COVID-19. And so again, we need to take precautionary measures, but we should not be walking on eggshells. And some of you know I've said hashtag refuse to fear. I refuse to fear, and I want you to do the same. Precaution measures, yes. Be careful and diligent, yes. But fear, no room for fear. But before we have your questions, and some of you are going to start to join us, and some of you, I know you're out there, we at the SADS Foundation have something incredibly special for you. We know what this COVID-19 pandemic has done to a lot of celebrations, disrupted them, graduations canceled, medical school graduations for my son and others gone virtual, high school graduations, 8th grade graduations, kindergarten celebrations not held, gone virtual. We know for the SADS community that we are aware of at least 100 of ours who are graduated in May or June from high school, university, medical school, nursing school, or for a special volunteer to the SADS Foundation, have gotten their master's in nursing. Way to go, Rebecca. So we wanted to do something special, and the SADS Foundation reached out to you all, and we have a slideshow for those of you who sent in your pictures for your achievement, your accomplishment, and there's 20 or so of you that did. And I'm going to break out, let Aaron show this slideshow, and then I'm going to come on and give you a SADS Foundation commencement address that maybe will be our attempt to try to have it be something special and memorable for you despite the cancellation of the official ceremony. So Aaron, take it away and let's celebrate all of the achievements of our children, adults. And that was so fantastic. And you know what? I think we have time. Aaron, would it be too hard to play it again? I want to see those again. Can you do that? Well, I'm back, and I'm sorry about that. I just enjoyed that slideshow so much, and I was starting to go down my own memory lane because some of those pictures are my patients, and congratulations. I'm so proud of you. Some of them are people I know well, but I haven't had the privilege to be your doctor. Miranda, I think I remember meeting you as a young girl in Washington, D.C., and I know just how proud your dad is of you, and I can only imagine how proud your mom is and would be of you. So the SADS Foundation wanted to give you your commencement address from our perspective. As you know, our goal for all of our families and all of our patients affected with genetic heart rhythm diseases are for you to live and thrive despite your diagnosis. And we hope you've done that. And looking at your achievement, whether it was high school or college or medical school. And one of my patients, Britton, residency bound, way to go. Wherever it is, nursing career, law enforcement for Carter. I want you to be the best one ever, Carter. We need you. We desperately need you. So thank you to all of you and congrats to all of you. But I want you to ask yourself, and there's challenges with a commencement address, of course. We think of the shoulders of the giants that we've stood upon to get us where we are, and we thank them and we acknowledge them. We think of them as pillars in our life. But I want to ask you to ask yourself, how is life going? How is your life going? How do you want your life to go? Are you living and thriving? What pillars are your life built upon? In this current chapter of this life, now with chapter closed and success achieved, what kind of chapter do you want to write next? What do you want your pillars to be? Not the who they are or who they might be, the what. And to talk about pillars of life or pillars for your life, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into my other life. For over 35 years, I was a Taekwondo instructor in the American Taekwondo Association, conducted classes with my students for 30 of those years. I'm going to bring you into my class to talk about pillars. You and I would be standing at attention if you were in one of my Taekwondo classes. And before we would begin our class, we would say, since it's me as a man, sir. If it was a woman, you would say, ma'am. And then we would say together, I will, not I might, I'll try, I'll give it my best shot, but we would say, I will practice in the spirit of Taekwondo with courtesy for fellow students, loyalty for my instructors, and respect for my juniors and seniors, sir. We would then conduct the class. We'd work out hard, really hard. And when we were done, we would then say together at attention, sir, for me, I shall live with perseverance in the spirit of Taekwondo, having honor with others, integrity within myself, and self-control in my actions, sir. Those are pillars. How are your pillars standing? Do you possess them? Are you pleased with them? We need them. We need you to have them. And so it's always great time, anytime, but especially with achievements and especially with new seasons and new chapters, to do some introspection and say, what do I think about my pillars? Have they gotten rusty? Have they eroded? Did they never get erected in the first place? And look at them carefully. Look in the mirror at them. Because hopefully we could agree that these pillars are not red pillars or blue pillars. They're not liberal pillars or conservative pillars. And when I would say them with my students, they wouldn't even know perhaps what is my own personal ideology. Because hopefully these would be universal pillars that we would all want to have reflected in our life, in the core of who we are. And we would have these, the tenets of Taekwondo. Do you possess them for life? Courtesy. Man, do we need that? Integrity. How's your integrity? Perseverance. Well, I know many of you have perseverance. I've seen it firsthand. I've watched you families be amazing in the way you can persevere despite unspeakable tragedy in your own lives, in your families, lost loved ones taken way too early from genetic heart disease. I think perseverance is probably there in many of you. Courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control. Where's that at? Do you have it? Indomitable spirit, victory. Do you possess those? Do you have those? Are you seeking those? Are you trying to make those better? Is that how you would be defined as somebody saying those 6 pillars are rock solid, standing tall? Or where did they go? Life eroded them. You didn't pursue them. You didn't acquire them. Get them. Grab them. I want you to have all of them. I want your life to reflect them. If you don't and you're not pleased, maybe for whatever reason, excuses, reasons, blames, anything. I could have all kind in my own life. Growing up, I had a lot of fun. It was in the FUN part of dysfunctional family. Excuse, maybe a reason. What's yours? Many of your families are beautiful families. I know them firsthand. I know you. You want to have an excuse not to have those pillars, but nonetheless, we can't take it for granted. You should take stock of it. You should decide your satisfaction in the quality of those tenets. Are they present? Are they reflected easily, naturally, continually? Or have they been eroding? Take this next chapter of your life as a new opportunity to say, I'm going to get them back, or I'm going to plant the seeds to grow that pillar for the first time in my life, because it's time. It's overdue. And I think these are timeless pillars. They're not outdated. Courtesy isn't something that is oh so yesterday. And respect for my juniors and seniors isn't something that is oh so yesterday. These are timeless pillars that are great to have. So I want you to have them. And then, like any pillar, they are built on a foundation. What's your foundation built on? What are you erecting these pillars upon? Are you putting them upon the intrinsic strength, the so-called goodness of man and woman? Are you putting them on a foundation that is soft and changing? Are you building them on a strong foundation? You'll have to figure out what your foundation is. Many of you may know it already. For me, I know my foundation. It's not in me. For me, it is the joy of the Lord is my strength. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I've chosen to put my foundation and have a foundation in something and someone who is unchanging, who is reliable, dependable. I can take it to the bank and know that that kind of unconditional love is there always. What's your foundation? It's good to ask deep questions in our lives as we look around us, to get confidence and to have peace, to have a peace that passes all human understanding. So I think as we celebrate together your incredible achievement, and I see them in the 20, Alfredo, I am so proud of you. I see it in Britton and Miranda, and I see it in Carter, Morgan. Oh man, Morgan, I love your family. There's a foundation. There's pillars that you don't have an excuse not to have. But don't rely on what was provided by the family of love and the structure. Now take it to the next level. I want you all to live and thrive despite your diagnosis. I want you to have the abundant life in this next chapter. I want you to have victory in your life. Do not settle for participation trophy. Some of you know about that. Some of us got them for showing up. In this next chapter of your life, whether it's moved on to college, nursing school, residency, whatever it is, 9th grade for one of you 8th grade graduates, no matter what it is, don't participate in this next chapter of life. Succeed in it. Win in it. Be victorious in it. Life is not about a participation trophy. Life is about winning, being victorious, achieving, succeeding, Don't be ordinary in what you do. Carter, I want you to be the best law enforcement officer that you can be. Britton, I want you to be the best resident in your residency program. Morgan, I want you to become the best nurse. Don't participate in nursing. Be victorious in it. And so do not accept, please do not accept, as you move on to this next chapter, a satisfaction in being ordinary. There is no satisfaction in being ordinary. Be extraordinary at whatever you do. If you're going to trade school, I want you to be the best electrician, plumber, carpenter that there is in your school. Victory, not participation, victory. Congratulations to the class of 2020. Blessings to you. You are amazing individuals. And I think I know the best is yet to come for you. So on behalf of the SADS Foundation, congratulations. And now in our balance of time, we have about 15 minutes. Some questions have probably been coming in. I haven't looked on the side, but we will see them. And I'm delighted to spend the next few minutes taking your questions, or if you have any comments, I could react to them. This is your time for the rest of this session. And I'm looking on the side to see some comments coming in. Not all of them are great, happy comments. Renee, I'm so sad for you as you think about your son who died from a SADS condition just 7 short months ago. We are here for you. I can see you are not reaching us at the SADS Foundation. They're going to reach out to you, Renee, and they're going to love on you at the SADS Foundation and get you to where you can breathe again and you can hope again. So Renee, we're here for you, and others already I see have come alongside of you with their comments. So Mary, you've been one of our Friday faithfuls, so I'm glad you're enjoying it, and thanks. I see, Sandy. Sandy didn't read my previous notes. Maybe you're new, so we'll give you a pass about trying to make your question short so that I can speed read it on the side. It's a little bit long, but let me see. I'm going to give it to you anyway, Sandy, because you earned it. Your daughter is an RN, works with COVID-19 patients, and you're being worried about being around the other daughter and even you, mom, who have type 2 long QT syndrome. You want to see her and hug her. Should you be concerned? You haven't seen her since February 2. And it's the 4th anniversary of your son's death. And Sandy, I'm so sorry for that. Again, of course, when we have a SADS Foundation devoted to families with genetic heart diseases that can cause sudden cardiac death, it's not a surprise that some of our community have already realized the tragedy of these genetic conditions. Sandy and your nurse daughter, it's time for a hug. I think we need to figure out how to do this coexistence with SARS-CoV-2 because it's not going away. So here's the way. You mask, she mask, give that hug. After you give the hug, you can even give the kiss on the cheek. Wash your face then, wash your hands. But I hugged my mother and father, my wife's mom and dad last week. We had stayed apart from them for 3+ months. We skipped Easter together out of concern for exposing them since they were elderly and at greater risk. It was time. You all will decide when is it time and how will you do the coexistence. So if you're going to be nervous about giving the hug, it's not time for the hug, but it sounds like it is time. And do it, mask on, wash your hands, and you will love that precious moment together again. And I think Carolyn has given a comment, and I think her point is a beautiful one. She's stating that Jesus, who I shared with you as my foundation, loves all of us. and not just the extraordinary. And that is so absolutely true. My call and my encouragement was for us to never be satisfied with ordinary, to always go for extraordinary. And believe me, we're going to be ordinary in some spheres of our life. My office doesn't look very extraordinary. I'm pretty ordinary in that category. I'm pretty ordinary when it comes to singing a tune. But take what your passion is and go for being extraordinary in that passion. It's a whole lot better to set your bar there than to set it at a level that it is easy to roll over. So that was my encouragement. The ordinary, you are you, we, I am loved no less in my ordinariness than by any outstanding achievement. So Carolyn, thanks for that addition. Rachel, I like your question. In a teen with CPVT, how hard can she push herself to increase her endurance, like her maximum heart rate during exercise? Well, I would say whether you are CPVT or long QT, I really do not have a heart rate ceiling that I tell you not to exercise above. With one caveat, there's something very interesting in CPVT where we can potentially train a level of protection into your heart. In other words, there's some really cool research out of Norway from one of my former trainees, Christina Hauge, and it's pretty cool in CPVT. And that is, on your stress test in CPVT, that there's a certain heart rate where the ectopy, the skip beats, come out. And what we have learned and what we have done is that if we then say, let's say, for example, the skip beats come out at 130, for example, we would then train your heart to 90% of that value to say, I want you to train to 90% of 130, which is about 117. I did that on the fly, so double check my math. And what we're learning is that by training the heart to that level, the next time we do your stress test, the ectopy may not come out at 130. It might then come out not until 140 or 150. And then we can set 90% to that onset heart rate and so forth, and build up a level of training protection in CPVT. This is pretty new. We need more work in this area, but I think it's kind of an exciting area, Rachel. And so thanks for asking that. Let's see what else we have. So there's some good. Oh, here's a great one from Breakers. Hi there. Do you still recommend pacemakers for your long QT CPVT patients who have low heart rates? And I love that question. In fact, we're going to have a session, I think 2 weeks from today, devoted to device technology, defibrillators, pacemakers, machines in the management of patients with long QT syndrome, CPVT, Brugada syndrome. So the first comment I would have is that most of our patients with long QT syndrome and CPVT do not need and should not receive either a pacemaker or a defibrillator. The majority of these diseases overall can be treated incredibly well without devices. In our own program, about 20% of all of my patients own an internal device. When we choose a device, it's often a defibrillator, not the pacemaker. Sometimes it comes with it, but I think your question is very good in that it is sort of not a one size fits all. In other words, these diseases deserve a specialist who practices precision medicine, tailoring the therapy to you, to your goals, to your desires, and to your disease and your disease's expressivity. In fact, we have some new data coming out showing that an intentional pacing strategy where we pace the heart in those with machines to go at 80 beats per minute as the bottom rate. not let it go below that, is providing incredible protection in patients with type 2 long QT syndrome, especially women who've had aggressive type 2 long QT syndrome with recurrent ICD shocks. So each of our diseases, there's going to be different strategies. And in 2 weeks, come back, because we're going to have a session devoted to device technology as it relates to these diseases. Carrie's asking a good question. It'll come up next time as well, about how do I know if a lead is being recalled? And basically, you would know. This doesn't become a secret of discovering it by a process of awareness or self-awareness. The device companies do an incredible job, all of them, with once they know and when they know that there is a problem in device design or so forth, that they need to issue a recall, like a car company brake recall, for example, that process gets communicated. It gets communicated to, say, for example, our device clinic at Mayo, and all the other places do the same thing. We then systematically review our inventory of our patients who are managed with those. We find out who has that recalled item and that product, and then we begin the strategy of notification and revising if needed, adding software patches if needed, and so forth. So it's not going to remain a secret. If the company learns that there's a problem and we, the healthcare community, are informed that the lead has a recall issue, for example. That's a great question. There's a lot more to unpack there, and we will do that in 2 weeks. 8 minutes to go, and the questions are really starting to flow. I love it. A question from Jess. SCN5A mutation is called unknown significance. Your dad had it too, and you follow the credible meds as a precautionary measure. Should your newborn be tested for this? That's a really good question. In my own program, I try really hard to get off of the unknown significance fence and say, I think it is LQT3 or Brugada causing in the case of SCN5A, or I think it isn't. And I'm going to call it likely benign. Sometimes we are stuck in this place that I've called genetic purgatory with a variant of unknown significance. But I try to get myself to give it a designation to the right or to the left. Promote it to disease causing, demote it to likely benign. If I cannot, I may do exactly what's being done, do the credible meds list. But in your newborn, I may or may not choose to test for that unknown variant. What I'll for sure do is step back and say, do I think you and your father, Jess, even have SCN5A disease? Do you even look like LQT3, look like Brugada syndrome, look like any genetic heart disease? And if the answer is no, then that VUS is starting to tip towards benign. If the answer is yes, then I'm going to be using that phenotype, that clinical presentation, to guide what tests and how I want to look at your newborn. And I think we're going to, let's park that too. That's a great topic, SADS Foundation team, for a future. Danielle, I'll try to be fast and furious in our 5 remaining minutes. But of course, she gives me a loaded question about, can I call you Princess? I will. Princess Alana doesn't want her playing competitive sports, but she loves her soccer, LQT2, QTC around 500. This is the way it is. There are those of us who have embraced live and thrive to mean that even my athletes with genetic heart rhythm diseases, even my athletes with LQT2 and a QTC above 500, if their passion is the round ball or the other shaped ball, as in a football, or a small ball called the tennis ball, and so forth, and that's closer to oxygen for them rather than optional, we do everything we can to allow that to continue and to continue safely. And I follow about 500 athletes now throughout the country and world who have remained athletes despite their genetic heart disease. And these athletes have given me no reason to change my mind about this approach. So continue the conversation and never, ever give up on it. Jill's son, hi Jill, I don't recognize the name, so maybe new, so welcome. CPVT, his defibrillator has not fired in 9 years, but this week alone fired 5 times repeatedly. What's your opinion on the left thoracic sympathectomy? Well, great question, Jill. It depends. First, I'm assuming that the device fired correctly because it needed to have rescued your son's CPVT heart from the CPVT triggered danger rhythm of VT and VF that was trying to do harm to Jess. If that's a true statement, then your son's CPVT treatment program needs to be intensified immediately. So that intensification would be reviewing what's the beta blocker? Is it Nadolol? If not, think about getting that. What was the dose? Was it good? Was the dose missed? Stop missing. Going to combination drug therapy with the addition of flecainide, and strongly, strongly, strongly considering denervation therapy to provide triple protection with left cardiac sympathetic denervation. Denervation therapy is incredibly effective, not curative, incredibly effective in LQT1 and CPVT. Those are the 2 genetic subtypes for which it works absolutely the best. Not curative, but the results have been published internationally for CPVT and denervation, and done in the right center who knows how to do left cardiac sympathetic denervation the right way. The results have been very, very satisfying. So to be continued for your son, Jill, and I wish you all the best. John's asking about on the other end of the equation, where if you've had the ICD and you've never had an event in over 10 years, can you get it removed? John, great question. Let me just say it's really hard to overcome the thermal equilibrium barrier to reverse course and undo a decision of device implantation. But we are doing that. And so a couple examples, we've published our experience of device explantation, removing the device either for misdiagnosis or overtreatment. So those 2 are easier. In other words, if you come and I don't even think you have a disease in the first place, then we're going to rewind the clock, even if that means extracting the system to get back to the beginning. Not always easy. We don't always do it. Or if you're diagnosed correctly, but I never would have put the device in the first place, I don't feel any obligation to continue with that treatment strategy if I don't think, as well intended as it might have been, if I don't think it's indicated any longer. And so, yes, we do remove systems. We either remove the entire thing, just the generator, abandon, and so forth. It's a very involved conversation. It's not an easy one at all, but it's definitely one that's done, particularly for diseases like CPVT, where a defibrillator got put into the patients really easily in that disease in the past. And now we're working harder and harder and harder not to use a defibrillator, even if the patient's portal of entry for their CPVT discovery was a sudden cardiac arrest. If that sudden cardiac arrest happened untreated before diagnosis, we don't necessarily now in 2020 feel like we have to go all the way to device installation when we could potentially configure the triple package in that individual and give them great protection. It's still very hard if there's been a death attempt, a cardiac arrest that brought you to attention to stand down and not install a device, but we're starting to do that. So, wow, great questions today. And believe it or not, we are at the top of the hour. And so I have loved this special time. Again, special shout out to our 20 incredible students who graduated from 8th grade, high school, college, medical school, nursing school. Rebecca, master's, nursing, and whatever it was for the 20 of you. And for all of you out there who have graduated but didn't get a chance to send in your picture, we're very, very proud of you and delighted that you are part of our community. Of course, we wish you weren't. We wish you didn't even have a genetic heart condition, a SADS condition. But since you do, we can all decide together to live and thrive despite long QT, to live and thrive despite CPVT, to live and thrive despite COVID-19 or any other thing that comes around the corner. Refuse to fear. Erect your pillars this next chapter of your life. Make them stronger and taller than ever before. Build them for the first time and build them on a firm foundation. Join us next week. You're going to love next week. We're hoping, we've got to put it together yet, but we're hoping that Dr. Georgia Brugada in Barcelona, Spain, is going to return and join me so that we can do a special session taking the questions from our Spanish-speaking community and answer your questions in Spanish. She will, I won't. I'll give the answers. She will then translate, and we're going to try to have a lot of fun doing that next week. So join us again, same time next Friday. Until then, have a great weekend. Stay corona-free. Use your mask in the public square. Social distancing, yes, it still works unless it's time to give that daughter of yours a great big hug. See you, everyone.